Hi guys, and thank you so much for joining me. If you are new to my channel, I'm Kat and I like to talk about true crime, conspiracies and all sorts of related things. Today I want to talk to you about the case of Damilola Taylor. But before we get started, just a quick disclaimer. I don't mean to be disrespectful to anyone I talk about in this video. The video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. All the information that I give you in the video is already found in the public domain. Thank you so much. Now, let's get started. On 27th of November 2000, 10-year-old Nigerian schoolboy Damilola Taylor was killed in London in what became one of the United Kingdom's most high-profile killings. Two brothers, who were 12 and 13 at the time of the killing, were convicted of manslaughter in 2006. Damilola Olufemi Taylor was born in Lagos, Nigeria, to Richard and Gloria Taylor, members of the Yoruba people. He attended Wisdom Montessori School in Ikosi, Ketu, Lagos, before he traveled to the UK in August 2000 with his family to seek treatment for his sister's epilepsy. On 27th of November 2000, Taylor set off from Peckham Library, south of London, at 4:51 p.m. to walk home. He was captured on CCTV as he walked away. On approaching the North Peckham Estate, he received a gash to his left thigh, severing an artery. Staggering to a stairwell, he collapsed and bled to near death in approximately 30 minutes. He was still alive in an ambulance on his way to the hospital. He died 10 days before his 11th birthday. In 2002, 4 youths, including two 16-year-old brothers, went on trial at the Old Bailey for the murder of Damilola. The trial led to all 4 suspects being acquitted. 2 were acquitted on the direction of the judge after he ruled that the prosecution's key witness, a 14-year-old girl, was unreliable. The jury found the other 2 not guilty. As well as questioning the reliability of the witness, the defense presented expert witness testimony from Alastair Wilson, Associate Clinical Director at the Royal London Hospital and one of Britain's top trauma experts, that Taylor's wounds were consistent with his falling on a broken bottle whilst being attacked. This was disputed by the prosecution, who argued that Taylor would have had to take off and fly through the air like Peter Pan in order for Wilson's theory to be correct. Wilson also admitted that he had not seen Damilola's body or been given other information about the death. Pathologist Dr. Vesna Durovic maintained that Taylor was stabbed deliberately with a broken bottle in the left thigh, probably while he was on the ground. Despite the setback, police kept the investigation open. New DNA techniques identified Taylor's blood on the trainers of Daniel Preddy and on the sweatshirt cuff of his brother Richard Preddy, neither of whom were among the 4 original suspects. This led to a re-examination of the evidence obtained at the time of Damilola Taylor's death. In 2005, fresh arrests were made, resulting in Hassan Jihad, 19, and the Preddy brothers, aged 16 and 17, being charged with manslaughter. Due to their age, the Preddy brothers were not publicly named at the time of their arrest or during their trial. On 23rd of January 2006, Jihad, now 21 years old, and the Preddy brothers, now 17 and 18 years old, appeared at the Old Bailey to face charges of his manslaughter and assault before the start of their imminent trial. The trial started on 24th of January 2006. Alastair Wilson again testified that he thought Taylor died after falling on a shard of glass from a broken bottle. After retiring on 29th of March to consider its verdict, on 3rd of April the jury cleared Jihad of all charges in relation to Taylor's death. They were unable to reach a verdict on the charges of manslaughter against the 2 brothers, so they were released, but with the possibility of a retrial on those charges. The retrial of the brothers began on 23rd of June. The 2 brothers, then over 18 years old, were named as Danny and Ricky Preddy of Peckham, South London. Both defendants were very well known to police, having committed multiple robberies. On 9th of August 2006, Ricky Gavin Preddy, born 1987 in Lambeth, London, and Danny Charles Preddy, born 1988 in Lambeth, after a 33-day retrial, were convicted of the manslaughter of Damilola Taylor. During the retrial, it was noted that while the police did follow procedure collecting evidence, lapses occurred in the prosecution. On 9th of October 2006, an Old Bailey judge sentenced the Preddy brothers to 8 years in youth custody for manslaughter. Although it was widely reported in the media that Taylor's parents were unhappy the sentences had not been longer, the judge, Mr. Justice Goldring, went to some lengths to explain the factors he was forced to take into account. These included the age of the offenders at the time, they were 12 and 13 at the time, and that there was no evidence to suggest there had been a plan to kill Damilola Taylor. In addition, the bottle used had not been carried to the scene of the crime. Both brothers were set to be paroled in 2010 after serving half of their sentence. Ricky was released on 8th of September 2010 subject to probation supervision and subject to recall to custody if he breached the conditions or if his behavior indicated that it was no longer safe to allow him to remain in the community. Danny was released in 2011. Ricky was recalled on 13th of March 2011 because he was seen in Peckham and for associating with gang members, both contrary to his parole conditions. He was released again on 25th of January 2012. He was again recalled to prison 16 days later in February 2012 after again associating with gang members in Peckham, in breach of the terms of his release. Taylor's father called for a public inquiry into the handling of the case. Ricky Preddy was released again in July 2012. In February 2020, Ricky Preddy, also known as Ricky Johnson, was again jailed. He had driven his car at a police officer, leaving her with serious injuries. Preddy pled guilty to causing serious injury by dangerous driving, driving whilst disqualified, failing to stop, and driving without insurance. He was imprisoned for 4 years for the crimes. Children's author Beverly Naidoo recalled how, when she went to accept the Smarties Silver Award for her book The Other Side of Truth, published in 2000, about 2 Nigerian child refugees, she heard the news of Taylor's death. As a result, she organized an ongoing donation of 10p to the Refugee Council from every book sold. Writer Stephen Kellman was nominated for the 2011 Man Booker Prize for his debut novel Pigeon English, inspired in part by the Taylor killing. Actor John Boyega and his sister Grace were among the last people to see Taylor alive. They were friends and the Boyegas helped watch Damilola Taylor. The BBC programme Panorama aired a special on the death of Damilola Taylor in April 2002. A 90-minute BBC dramatization of the events leading to his death and his family's search for justice, Damilola, Our Loved Boy, premiered in November 2016 and won the BAFTA award for a single drama. In Black History Month 2020, Capital Extra presenter Inka Bokini, also a playmate of Damilola Taylor, hosted a documentary about him for Channel 4 titled Damilola, the Boy Next Door. This is pretty much the summary of the case, but I really want to give it justice, so let's dig in a bit deeper into it. In 2000, 10-year-old Damilola Taylor was fatally stabbed as he was walking home from the library in Peckham, South London. Damilola had just moved to the UK from Nigeria with his family that same year, and his killing shocked the nation. Here is what happened to Damilola Taylor. Damilola was born in Nigeria on 7th of December 1989. He moved to England with his mother and sister in the summer of the year 2000 to get treatment for his sister Bemi, who had severe epilepsy. They lived in Peckham, South London. Damilola had wanted to pursue a career in medicine to help people like his sister get better and had been a big football fan. He joined the Oliver Goldsmith School when he moved to the UK, and the now well-known picture of him smiling in his school uniform was widely used in the press at the time of the attack. All who knew him described him as a sensitive and exuberant boy who loved life and lit up the room when he walked into it with his infectious good humor and winning smile. Damilola had been walking home from studying at Peckham Library on 27th of November 2000 when he was attacked close to the North Peckham Estate and stabbed in the leg with a broken bottle. He managed to get himself to a concrete stairwell and collapsed. A workman who spotted the blood leading to the stairwell found Damilola, who said he was okay. The 10-year-old died before he reached hospital. It took several years and multiple trials to bring the people responsible for Damilola's death to justice. Eventually, the two brothers, Danny and Ricky Preddy, were convicted of manslaughter. In 2006, the brothers, who had been 12 and 13 at the time of the attack, were sentenced to 8 years in youth custody. They had been previously known to police for being serial young offenders linked to offenses such as robberies. The documentary Damilola, The Boy Next Door has been made by radio presenter and DJ Inka Bokini, who grew up on the same Peckham estate as Damilola and was his neighbor and friend. I want to honor him and tell people that he was loved, cared for, and that he mattered, said Bokini. Dami was a regular 10-year-old who was cheeky, funny, loving, and boisterous. I don't want people to think his story was doomed to end in the way it did. The estate has since been demolished and the families who live there dispersed. 20 years after Damilola's death, Bokini explored the impact the tragic event had on her community and reconciled the version of the estate she remembers with the notorious image it had in the media. Bokini said she had never spoken about Damilola's death before making the documentary and had lived with many questions about what happened to him and why it happened on her estate. To finally be telling the story feels both therapeutic and scary, but I am ready to share this side of the story. Hopefully everyone will get to know the real Damilola as he lived a bit better. So, if you are wondering or questioning where are Damilola Taylor's killers, Danny and Ricky Preddy, now, let me tell you this. These two boys, they were the young killers who cruelly stabbed Damilola Taylor to death as he walked home from computer club in Peckham. Brothers Danny and Ricky Preddy were members of a gang known as the Young Peckham Boys and by age 12 and 13 were terrorizing the streets of South London. Danny was rarely out of supervision or detention, and at the time of Damilola's killing, he should have been subject to a 24-hour curfew in a social services home. 4 weeks after the killing, Danny was placed under a supervision order for an assault with intent to rob and 2 cases of racially aggravated assault. He breached the order. Ricky, 13 at the time of the killing, also had a history of violence and theft. He was also supposed to have been under supervision when the schoolboy was killed. Danny was let out of prison in 2011 after being given early release for serving 5 years of his 8-year sentence. His brother was released the year before on parole just 4 years after the 8-year sentence was handed down. He was sent back to prison in March 2011 after visiting Peckham from his West London bail hostel in breach of his license conditions. While inside, he beat up another prisoner, but a parole board hearing on December 23, 2011 decided he should be released on January 25, 2012. Just 16 days later, he was jailed again for violating his parole when he visited areas he was banned from and visiting friends from his old gang. In November 2019, Ricky was driving through Wembley when police asked him to pull over. After stopping, he then reversed into the police vehicle and injured a female officer inside. Then he drove away. He was later caught by police and has been sentenced to 4 years in prison and a 12-year driving ban, effective from when he's released from jail. Harrowing CCTV footage from the night Damilola died on November 27, 2000 shows him leaving Peckham Library at 4:51 p.m. Damilola looked happy as he skipped home with a smile on his face. Just 15 minutes later, he was bleeding to death in a filthy stairwell. The schoolboy was approaching the North Peckham Estate when he was stabbed in the leg with a piece of broken glass. He ran to a concrete stairwell where he collapsed and was dead within 30 minutes. Damilola was just 10 days away from celebrating his 11th birthday. Star Wars actor John Boyega and his sister Grace were some of the last people to be spotted on the CCTV footage with Damilola while escorting him part of the way home. The three were friends and the Boyegas helped babysit him. Rio Ferdinand, who grew up on the estate in Peckham where Damilola was killed, made a direct appeal to children for information about the youngster's death. After Damilola's death, it took 6 years and 3 trials to identify and convict his killers. Speaking outside the Old Bailey after the case, the boy's parents, Richard and Gloria Taylor, vowed to continue fighting for justice. Ricky was charged with his younger brother Danny in 2005 when forensic evidence missed at the time revealed tiny blood spots and fibers. The Preddy brothers were eventually convicted of manslaughter in 2006. They were sentenced to 8 years in youth custody, but released in 2011 and 2010. So, they got what? 8 years for killing a 10-year-old boy who did nothing to them. I'm sorry, but this is utterly ridiculous and unfair to say the least. Yeah, okay, I get that some people will say they were only 12 and 13, they were kids, they didn't know any better. Well, I'm sorry, but at 12 and 13, I think you know better than killing someone. I'm sorry to say that. Well, I'm not actually sorry, but for those people, I'm saying it, for those people who get very offended when someone says something like this, I think at 12 and 13, you know to make the difference between right and wrong, and you can't convince me otherwise. See, this right here is the reason why these youths, they keep reoffending, because of the sentences being so light. Nowadays, you as an adult are even scared to say anything to any underage teenagers because they can just throw a punch, a knife, and you can't defend yourself because they are underage and you get in trouble. You can't even touch them. That's the truth, and they know it. They know it. They know that they are untouchable, and some do take advantage of it just because they can, just because they know that no one can touch them. And when they are in groups, oh my god, here in the UK it's even worse when they I'm getting so worked up here. It's even worse when they are in groups. They break windows at Tesco supermarket, they cause havoc at McDonald's, and they need to be kicked out from Lidl supermarket. Some of them are just terrible teens. It's like they are ferals, savages with no education or fear of consequences. And how would 8 years in prison for manslaughter teach them a lesson? How? Stop them? How will this stop them from reoffending? It won't, definitely not. It will not teach them a lesson. They should be tried and sentenced as an adult because they knew exactly what they were doing. It was manslaughter. I mean, look at Aidan Fucci. Aidan Fucci was 14 years old when he killed his 13-year-old friend Tristan Bailey by stabbing her 114 times, and he's facing first-degree murder charges. He's being tried as an adult, and for these charges you get between 25 years to life in prison. He was 14. Aidan Fucci was 14. These boys were 12 and 13. 8 years in prison and then also released early after only serving 4 years. What? And how do you suppose you stop these kids from reoffending when you give them sentences so light that, you know what, they just go in their youth centers there and they just think, oh, whatever, I'm just going to enjoy my time here in the center, and then in 3-4 years I'm free, and they'll just carry on doing the same things. Because this is not teaching a life lesson. It's not. I honestly believe that in these kind of circumstances, UK should take example of the US justice system when it comes to sentencing underage offenders. Yeah, I'm not saying you're gonna sentence a kid for stealing something from a shop and sentence him for 20 years in prison. No, of course not. But when it's a serious crime as it is, oh my god, I mean, 8 years is just appalling. Appalling. I am gobsmacked. Speechless. Thank you so much for watching today's video and for hearing me and seeing me rant here. Please let me know in the comments below if you've heard of this case before. And I have also decided I would like to focus my videos on less covered cases. So if there is anything that comes to mind, please do let me know in the comments below. Leave down a name and I will be more than happy to look into it. Also, you can also send me an email. My email address is in the about section of the channel. And you can also find me on my Facebook page. I'm mostly active on Facebook and YouTube. So if there is any case in particular that you'd like me to cover, please do let me know by any means you want. And for now, don't forget to please give this video a thumbs up. It really does help with the algorithm. The more engagement the video has, the more YouTube will be pushing the video throughout on the platform. Thank you again so much. Please take care and stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.